Leigh Wambsganss, Republican candidate for State Senate District 9 in Tarrant County. Thank you so much and welcome to Eye on Politics.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And so why are you running and what is the essence of your campaign?
Sure. So I've been involved in conservative campaigns, politics, legislation, policy, and issues for over 34 years. Started my career in television news and quickly went to work for a congressional campaign in Colorado, was recruited to Texas in 1996 to do another congressional campaign, and I just stayed involved on a volunteer basis for all of those years. I've worked on legislation, policy, run candidate campaigns, help with resolutions, and help with some really important amendments to get them passed, either passed, also stopped some bad legislation. So I feel like all of that time has sort of led to this time when this position was vacated by Kelly Hancock. I was, the first Republican candidate to jump in the race, and it's a condensed time frame. So it's been like drinking from a fire hose, but here we are. And the essence of my campaign, we have 23 cities in this district, and it doesn't matter where I go, it's the same top two issues, and that's property taxes and public safety. And with property taxes, we have some great opportunities in November to get our homestead exemption from the current $100,000 up to $140,000. That's one of the amendments. And if you're over 65, there's another amendment where those folks that are disabled or over 65 can take their homestead exemption from the current $10,000, bump that up to $60,000. I think we can even do better. I'd like to increase the homestead exemption. I also support compression on the school taxes. That is where the tax rate is pushed down, but that does not take money away from public schools. Our public schools need to be fully funded. And so that's, our biggest property tax issue is public schools. We have over $20 billion in our surplus. That's used in the formula to replenish that so that our public schools are still fully funded.
And let me ask you about, because you mentioned it before, this is a special election, so
Right.
There's no primary,
Right.
But it's the three of you. You've
Right.
got another Republican, John Huffman, and you've got a Democrat, Taylor Remmett.
Right.
And so why should voters vote for you over the other two?
I'm the only candidate in this race who has worked for over 3 decades, not just for one city, not just for one union, but for all of Texas, for all of Tarrant County, and in multiple arenas, from being in Austin, working on legislation, working for conservative candidates, working to make sure Tarrant County stays red. I believe the best policies for everyone in Texas are conservative policies.
And you were talking before about some of the issues, property tax relief and also public safety. Are those your two top issues? And you said this is what the district has told you, that the people
Yes.
within the district.
Yes.
And so their priorities are your priorities.
They absolutely are. And when I talk about public safety, it's both community local policing as well as border security. President Trump and Borders Our Homeland have done a great job of securing our border. But you might remember those beginning days of the Biden administration, our border was wide open. And Texas cannot, again, be caught, regardless of who's in the White House. We cannot be caught with an open border situation. I'm a big supporter of Operation Lone Star, but the Texas Ledge has to, right now, be preparing to make sure our border is secure regardless of who's in the White House.
And so let me ask you about that, because I know this last go around, there was, the legislature reduced the amount of money to about $3.5 billion to spend on the border. And I'm wondering, do you feel like that is enough? Or do you feel like there should be more going into this? Because the legislature did spend quite a bit of money, as you know,
Yes.
ramping up border
Yes.
security spending.
I think the border and security is the #1 role of government. And a lot of people say, well, listen, our border is a national issue, right? That our federal dollars should pay for that. And while I do agree with that philosophically, Texas is the 8th largest economy in the world. Our GDP is like $2.7 trillion at this point. Our biennial budget is over $360 billion. Texas has the financial well-being to make sure our border is secure. Here in Tarrant County, and we're one of the largest red counties in the nation. Tarrant County's population is larger than 14 states. We have issues in their border caused. Our own sheriff testified in Washington, D.C. that when he busted a stash house, they found women in cages in Tarrant County, and that was all from illegal border crossings. So it is a priority. I think we need to spend what we need. I know our state government's done a good job of trying to get some of those dollars that we spent back, and I think we do need to continue that. You know, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, but we also need to make it a priority in the Texas legislature to make sure our Texas citizens are secure and that that border is secure.
You brought up the fact that the state is waiting for reimbursement from Congress, from the federal government. And I'm wondering if Texas does get back that $11 billion, perhaps more, where do you think that money should be spent?
So a couple of things. We want to make sure the border's secure. If we need to put it into fortifying more security there on the border, we can do it. But whenever there's a surplus, Texans are being taxed out of their homes. We need to start giving some of that money back to Texans.
And I was going to ask you about that because we've seen the homestead exemption rise over the number of past sessions.
Right.
And as you mentioned before, this one, if voters approve, will go up to 140,000 from 100,000 for like 5.7 million people. And then if you're a senior or a disabled, 65 or over, it's going to go up to a $200,000 exemption.
Right.
And so you want to increase that further?
I think we can do it. I think we have enough surpluses in the budget to give Texans more property tax relief. I also think we can tighten up some of the spending and just have some fiscal discipline. I think our state does a really good job. The fact that we're the 8th largest economy in the world tells you that we are doing a great job, but Texans are feeling the heat when it comes to property taxes, and that's where we need to do a better job.
And so let me ask you, because there has been this ongoing conversation about property taxes, and people feel, even with the school reductions, because the state money is picking up more of the cost for education, people are still concerned about their rising property taxes.
Right.
So I'm wondering, aside from raising the homestead exemptions, what else could be done to make people feel better about their property taxes? I mean, in other words, is this a local issue, that the locals are spending too much, or what?
It's interesting, Jack. I was in a roundtable the other day, and it was a room full of CEOs and very high-ranking company executives. And they were asking, you know, what can the state ledge do? What can the state ledge do? And we talked about these very things. But then I asked a question, and no one knew an answer. I said, can you name one person on your school board? The room was silent. The school board set your property tax rate. People do need to get involved in their local government. It is the area of government that costs Texans the most because of them setting those tax rates. And school taxes are our highest property tax. Because we don't have a state income tax, our school taxes and ISD taxes are our highest taxes that we pay.
And we've seen a number of school districts in the November election. Some of them are having VADERs, voter-approved tax rate elections. And so what do you think about that? Here, they're being asked to reduce property taxes, raise their homestead exemptions.
Right.
On the other hand, some school districts, not all, are having these tax rate elections, basically raising the tax rate a little bit.
Yeah, I think voters need to be very leery about that. And it also varies so much from school district to school district. And it varies whether you're in a Robin Hood district, a receiving district, or a paying district. And those VADERs, as you know, there's the golden pennies and the copper pennies and all of those things. Some of them are switching those so that they're able to keep more of those dollars in their district, and it's a flat tax issue, but a lot of it is an increase, and voters need to pay attention. There are, there's over 23 cities in this district, and we have 13 school districts. And you know, in Texas, out of the 5 school districts that are being looked at for being taken over by the state right now, 2 of those are in Senate District 9.
Fort Worth being one of them.
Yes, and Lake Worth.
So let me ask you about school choice. You support it. And right now the program is being developed by the Texas Comptroller's Office. Is there anything in there that you want to see, you know, for sure in a program that the state is developing?
Absolutely. This is a passion of mine with education. I want to make sure education dollars are educating students. And there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse in this huge budget item. You know, school education and health and human services are our 2 largest state budget items. And we have to make sure there's some accountability and some better oversight to make sure the money is going to the students, not to special interests.
I also want to ask you about THC. This was very controversial
Yes.
during this past session. The governor obviously vetoed the ban that the Senate and the House voted on, and then there was really never any agreement after that. The Senate continued to vote for a ban, and then the House didn't get anywhere in the House, so Governor Abbott then did an executive order on this, banning THC products for those younger than 21,
Right.
but then regulating it thereafter. Where are you on this issue?
You know, I've learned a lot about that issue. I didn't even know there was such a thing as synthetic THC, which I've learned is very dangerous. And so I'm more in the Lieutenant Governor's camp on this. I fully support our teacup bill. I personally know people who, one lady had a baby who was having 17 seizures an hour, and they had tried everything. It's not like they went straight to it. And their doctor, as a last resort, went to items covered in the teacup bill. And that
Talking
baby,
about medical uses.
medical uses, when it's overseen by a physician. And when you do it that way, you don't have the minors being able to get a hold of it without adult supervision or without a doctor, being involved in the mix.
So this may come up for a vote again.
It sure may.
And so where you think you still favor the ban, the total
I do.
ban?
I favor medical use. I favor our existing teacup bill. I think it's compassionate. I think it is the right thing to do. But there are so many documented dangers with opening it up. And, kids are having problems. People are dying from the synthetic products that are not regulated and are, quite frankly, dangerous.
Last topic, and that is, there's always a lot of conversation the last several sessions, it hasn't gone anywhere, but that is gambling. Have these resorts, not gambling machines on every street corner and every gas station, but resorts that would include gambling. Where are you on this issue? And I know there are some, even Republicans, who say, let the voters decide, put this directly to the voters. Where are you on that?
So once you pass it, you can't stop it from being on every street corner. The thing is if people want to gamble, we're a short drive away up to Oklahoma to let that happen. I don't support expanded gambling in the state of Texas. The law enforcement entities that support me tell me that for every dollar it brings in, it's $4 in law enforcement and health and human services cost to taxpayers. Again, we're the 8th largest economy in the world with a $2.7 trillion GDP. We don't need the gambling industry in Texas. It's not a wholesome activity. I'm not said I've never been. In fact, I was in Vegas in March going to the Sphere. We saw the Eagles in concert, right? So it's just not something that we need in Texas, especially in Fort Worth. I love Fort Worth. It's one of the last safe, walkable big cities, and I want to keep it safe. And the human trafficking and the cartel and the organized crime that comes in with some of those entities is concerning. Let's keep Texas, Texas.
Leigh Wambsganss, Republican candidate for Senate District 9. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So nice to meet you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.